In this edition of Generations, we'll talk to Susan Miller of Home Care Choice about how to select a home care agency and service that's right for you. We wrap up our talks about Medicare with Laura Cruz and find out what you do and don't need from the service. And Judy James from Senior Centre CT.org joins us to talk about Don't Delay, Live Now. Hello, I'm Brian Scott-Smith and welcome to Generations, a new podcast for people of your generation. Aging in place is about staying in your home as you grow older, but it might also mean you need a home care service to help you with some of your daily activities. So how do you choose the right agency for you, and what should you expect from these types of service providers? I spoke to Susan Miller from the agency Home Care Choice, who provides these types of service to get the bigger picture. Susan, thanks for joining us on Generations.
Well, it's great to be here, Brian.
Tell me a little bit about Home Care Choice.
Home Care Choice is a small, private home care agency that hires caregivers that are hourly, overnight, and also live-in. We are located in Stonington, Connecticut, and it's a home office, so it's not a large corporation, but we accept mainly private pay clients and long-term care insurance, and also we have grant funding from Senior Resources. We get client referrals from them as well.
So this is about people wanting to age in place, maybe stay at their home or somewhere, and then you provide services that come to them. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Many elders are able to function well at home. Some of them do have more medical issues, and some of them need 24-hour supervisions. And an agency like Home Care Choice can provide each of those things for them so they can remain in their homes. It's pretty well documented that people living at home do better than when they have to go to a facility. Not in every case, but probably 80 or 90% of the time, a person that can stay home as long as possible is the one that will thrive.
Now tell us, how does one go about picking an agency? Because, I'm sure there's a lot of choice out there. So can you give maybe a few tips for people who are listening to this? What are the sorts of things they should be asking themselves?
Well, first of all, a lot of people that enter this discovery are not really that familiar with the home care world. So they've never been involved with it before. So the first thing to define is, well, what is home? Is home an assisted living? Is home your own house? Is it an apartment? Is it somewhere that's going to be amenable to having an outside caregiver come in? So they have to define that first. If the plan is for them to live with their daughter and the daughter wants to go to work and have a caregiver in place all day while she's at work, then that's one scenario. It just depends on the individual person. So there's lots of different ways to pick an agency. Families really need to talk about this and try to discover what are our values, and then that will fuel their search so that they're able to figure out what would be best for their loved one. So if it's grandpa who's never had a woman other than his wife take care of him, they've got to have a conversation with grandpa. So that agency has got to be able to enter into that discussion as well. So in Connecticut, there are more than 100 home care agencies of varying practices and services that are offered. Some of them are companions only or homemakers only. And because of that, you want to make sure that that's all the person needs, because if they need help with a shower, a companion or a homemaker can't do that. So you've got to have a clear picture of what it is that is needed for the level of care for your loved one. That's first of all. Then it's just basic. Go on Google. Go on Facebook. Look in the white pages or yellow pages in the phone directory. There's lots of different ways to get access. The other thing is go to a senior center. Senior centers all have social workers, and so you're able to go and sit down and have that dialogue with somebody like that. Talk to your friends and neighbors and other family members that may have used other agencies, and you'll have a lot of access. And one thing will trigger another. And next thing you know, you'll have an agency in mind.
Obviously, these things cost. We're not going to get into how much this costs, but who pays for it? Just talk us through that, if you would.
Well, it depends on the person. So the elder who is in need of the care, you have to assess their finances. First of all, because there are lots of governing bodies, both governmental for real, and then also what the person has for their resources. And so they would need to have a very clear picture of what their financial situation is. If they have, $100,000 in the bank, then obviously they can sustain, several hours a week of care, private pay. And if they are on Medicare, the only way that they're going to get any kind of home services is through a nursing agency who then would probably link to a hospitalization or a rehab stay, something like that. Medicare does not pay for home care services other than medically oriented home care services in a transition period from a facility or medical necessity. So if a person needs physical therapy, they also may need help with a shower. So Medicare will pay in those situations with doctor's orders. But for the long term, it's either going to be private, it's going to be a grant-funded program like the ones that Senior Resources have, or it will be long-term care insurance. Many of these policies have a rider for at-home care. So depending on what the person has paid into it, that will determine the outcome of that. Otherwise, they're going to be writing checks from their bank account, and or a family member is going to, shoot them some money or something like that.
We touched upon this a little bit earlier, where you said that you have to be, through conversation with the individual who's going to have the care, what specifically they need. Like, so if they need help with the shower, then you have to have the agency, the correct agency for that. Can you just give us a bit of a rough idea? What sorts of things can one expect the workers from various agencies to actually do?
Well, that's one of the key questions when you're hiring an agency. You have to know what is the level of care your person needs. So if they do need the hands-on care, then they have to have at the least a trained personal care assistant. And that care assistant doesn't have to be a certified CNA in the state of Connecticut or home health aide, but they can actually get training along the way from, wherever they've gotten. And many of them have taken care of loved ones at home themselves, so they have the skills, they just never have been licensed. Usually that's completely fine with a lot of families. They're good with that. So, Uncle George needs a shower, so they can help him with the shower, help him in and out of the shower, help him with his walker, help him get dressed, prepare a meal for him. And that person usually also can clean their house, take them to the bank if they need to go, take them to a doctor's appointment, so transportation is often involved, and that person will have everything they need combined in one caregiver. Other agencies only do companions or only do homemakers. So if you just want somebody to clean your house, you need to call one of those agencies, okay? A companion is somebody who would come in and just sit with the person for 2 or 3 hours. Many of the agencies now have a 3-hour minimum because of the transportation involved and the mileage involved for that caregiver to go house to house. And so typically they would go for a 3-hour period. They might make a sandwich for the person, do the few dishes in the sink as a companion, and then sit down and watch TV or listen to some music or just have a conversation or play a game. That's kind of a companion. A homemaker would actually pick up the mop and the broom and the vacuum and take care of the household chores. They also could probably make a light sandwich or something like that. And of course, they would interact with the person as well. We know that a lot of seniors experience great loneliness. So the idea of having a person come into the house and just fellowship with them and talk with them, stimulate them mentally, is often huge in their overall medical and well-being. So they're able to stimulate that person mentally. So that's a good thing.
Again, we talked about costs. We're not going to go into the amounts of this, but are you seeing this type of service? Is it growing? Is it you've made that point that if you can stay at home, people their outcomes seem to be better, sort of thing. So is this type of service growing?
Very definitely. First of all, you have to cite the reality of the growing baby boom generation. We've got about 30 years of people who are going to be elder coming toward us. And so, yes, this is huge. And more people, as they age, they're pretty viable and they're more healthy than they've been. So longevity is a big factor here. Very likely that somewhere along the line, even you and I sitting at the table would need to access this type of care at some point. So the industry is growing. How people pay for this is a bit of a quandary because many elders are on fixed incomes. So they don't have the resources. They don't have $100,000 in the bank. Many of them are living on Social Security. So there's something else in Connecticut. The state of Connecticut Department of Social Services offers the Connecticut Home Care Program for elders. And this is a program where the person has to be income eligible in an active Title 19 application process. And once they are approved, they will be put in a category for funding. And so many hours a week, depending on which category they are funded in, they will be able to pay for home care services out of that. Everything from 3 hours a week, 3 hours a day, all the way up to a full live-in caregiver if that's what they need. So that's something that can be investigated. You can go online to the Department of Social Services website, look up the Connecticut Home Care Program for Elders, and see what would be required for your loved one to apply for that program and become eligible for state funds to fund this. So that's one scenario. I do know that there are some limits with that because the state of Connecticut doesn't have a lot of extra money, but they have a lot of money diverted to elder care, so that's a good thing. Another big piece of it is people need to get financial advice. They need to talk to an elder law attorney. They need to talk to the social worker at the hospital or nursing home because these people are fully qualified to give insight as to what would be a good next step for them. So that would be an important factor as well.
And final question to you, Susan. Thanks for your time. Anything else that people sort of need to know that we've not touched on?
Well, I think probably the biggest word of advice that I would have, and probably the education system needs to hear that it would be great if we could start educating people when they're in high school to start planning for their future in this way. We want them to have a good retirement fund. We want them to invest their money. We want them to get a good education. However, we want them to sit with their families and talk about what's going to happen when grandfather can't take care of himself anymore. And be candid about it. Death is very much a part of life. People shouldn't be afraid of it. But one thing that gives us confidence as we move into that passage is the simple fact that we have a plan in mind and we can actually know what's going to happen. Go talk to the funeral director. Get sort of a plan in place. Don't be taken by surprise with every little turn of health or a change of circumstances in those that you love that are elders. And by the time we are 50, we should be having this dialogue with ourselves that we need to know what's going to be happening next. And of course, I'm only 29, so I don't have to talk to myself yet. But in any case, it's very important for families to just be open and honest about this. It is a scary thing, but it's much more scary if you don't have a plan in place.
Our thanks to Susan, and if you want to find out more about the services of her agency, you can visit their website at www.myhomecarechoice.com. Now, your Medicare options are important, and the deadline for making them is December 7th this year. It's a complex subject, and to wrap up our coverage on it, I spoke to Laura Cruz from the Senior Resources Agency on Aging to find out more. Laura, thanks for joining us on Generations. We're talking about Medicare and the various parts, and you're going to break down this complex subject. So what is Medicare?
So Medicare is the federal health insurance that individuals receive when they become a certain age and paying into the Medicare system through a variety of your payroll taxes.
Now, there's various parts to Medicare, A, B, C, and D. Can we talk briefly about each part and what it covers?
Oh, certainly. So Medicare Part A is called your hospital insurance, and covered under your hospital insurance is your inpatient hospital care, skilled nursing facility care. There are some home health services worked into that. And then last but not least would be hospice care. So that part is generally premium free, where you don't need to pay the monthly premium for. However, Medicare Part B is your pretty much everything other than that. That is your medical insurance. So that is when you see your doctor. It's durable medical equipment. It's your diagnostic imaging tests, lab services, items of that nature. And everyone must pay a monthly premium for Medicare Part B. I'm going to skip a second down to Medicare Part D before I say anything about Medicare Part C, because it all kind of goes together. Medicare Part D was devised in 2006 to offer Medicare beneficiaries a prescription drug plan. So individuals have the option of purchasing their own drug plan through the Medicare portal to help purchase their prescription drugs. Medicare Part C is slightly different. That is an alternative way or a different way to receive your Medicare benefits. You would purchase it through a private insurance company, but basically it's your Medicare Part A, B, and D wrapped up into one type of like a Medicare Advantage plan, usually in the form of HMOs or PPOs. And basically, you're deciding to get your Medicare benefits through a private insurance company. You're still part of the Medicare program, which means you must be enrolled in Medicare A and B, but it is just an alternative way to get your Medicare benefits.
So tell us, do you need all of these elements of Medicare?
Yeah, not necessarily. It really depends on your situation. So the bottom line is, if you are retired and you're not actively working, yes, you do need to be enrolled in at least Medicare Part A and Part B. The rest of the Medicare program is voluntary. Of course, we would screen you to see if you have other insurance in place, because the federal government, while they say you don't need a Medicare Part D plan, they also make it very clear that if you do not have a creditable drug plan in place, you can be penalized at a later time should you not wish to enroll into one. We also take into consideration when individuals come to our agency and we ask the question, are you offered a retiree health benefit from your former employer? If the answer is yes, then we can obviously counsel you on what Medicare A and B covers, but we would ask the question of, well, are you offered a supplemental plan? Are you also offered a prescription drug plan that's considered creditable? A lot of times it feels like, we're a little bit of a detective, but we do usually ask those types of questions. Individuals that are coming to us that are, say, retirees from the state of Connecticut, or perhaps you're a retiree from our United States military. A lot of times individuals have a retirement benefit, so we would encourage them to obviously enroll into Medicare Parts A and B, but many times they don't need to go off on their own to purchase a prescription drug plan or enroll themselves into a Medicare Advantage plan because they may have that through their retirement system.
So can you talk us through how you either get or purchase each part? You mentioned about private insurance. Can you give us a breakdown as to what the criteria is?
Absolutely. One of the biggest misconceptions is that you can go anywhere you want to enroll into Medicare A and B, and that is completely false. The Social Security Administration is the only holder or administrator of enrolling a person into Medicare A and B. So Social Security is your first stop always when it comes to the enrollment process. Otherwise, individuals find themselves basically on their own to enroll into either a prescription drug plan, say a supplemental plan, and or a Medicare Advantage plan. Choices counselors usually will help individuals enroll into a prescription drug plan, or you can do it yourself. The best tool to use is the Medicare.gov website. So it's www.medicare.gov. And right in the middle of the screen, you click on Find Health and Drug Plans. And that is the portal that anyone who's enrolled into Medicare can use should you be that person that needs to select your own plan and purchase it.
And what about if you're on a lower income? How do you afford Medicare then?
Yeah, that's a great question. So every state has a program called the Medicare Savings Program. That is a program, depending on how the state wants to run it. Connecticut just happens to have very generous income limits and an easy enrollment process, but it's based on income. When an individual is learning about Medicare, they're going to find out real quick that Medicare is not free, and there's always some form of a deductible copay or coinsurance left over. By enrolling into or applying for the Medicare Savings Program, it does help low-income individuals afford Medicare because the program will help pay for certain Medicare premiums. It will also help lower the cost of prescription drugs that you would normally purchase at the pharmacy counter. And at sometimes, depending on your level of income, you may also find that the state will actually become your secondary payer to help with your Part A and Part B deductibles, copays, and coinsurances. So if anyone thinks that they may qualify, the best thing to do is to complete the Medicare Savings Program application and apply for it.
Final point to make, if anyone has questions about Medicare, they can come to an organisation like yours, and that's free, correct?
Oh, absolutely. We are not insurance agents or brokers, so we do not sell insurance plans. We only want to provide you unbiased information about the entire Medicare program, and that includes all the pieces to Medicare. And you can reach out to what's called the Choices program. And we have 5 area agencies on aging in Connecticut. I just happen to be with Senior Resources, and you are more than welcome to call our agency directly for Medicare assistance.
My thanks to Laura, and we hope you found our coverage about Medicare over the past few months helpful. And finally, Judy Jenks from seniorcenterct.org is with us as usual. Welcome, Judy.
How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you very much. Now, you're going to talk to us about don't wait to do what?
To live. We have a tendency to delay. We put things off. You know, it's just our nature. So we've all heard, oh, I don't have time. No, I can't afford it. It's too expensive. Who will take care of the dog? I can't because my husband, my mother, my sister isn't feeling well. I have to be available for my grandchildren. There is no one else. I'll do it next time. I'll do it next year. I'll do it after I retire. Yes, I really, really want to, but have you heard or said these things? Is this what stops you from doing the things you dream about, the things you want to do? Is this what stops you from making that bucket list? Well, you know what? There will come a time when you really won't be able to do these things. It will be when your spouse or your traveling partner is dead, when you have lost the ability to travel, when you truly have no money left because you gave it all to the kids. So change all of those things. Stop being that person who always has a reason to not do something. Become the person who's out and about, the person executing the plan. My in-laws died before they could do any of the above things because they always had those reasons on why not to. And unfortunately, they both died within 3 months of each other in their late 60s. My husband and I learned to get out there and travel, remodel the house, visit relatives, learn new things, question our wants and needs because of that lesson we learned. So live now, don't delay. Make your plans for 2019. Be present. And you know what? You'll be happier. You'll enjoy life a little more. You'll have new stories to tell, and you'll find more things you can and want to do. Get out there and enjoy life.
It's almost like a poem. It's fabulous. I mean, it's all true stuff, though, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is. Because we either don't think about what we want to do, or we find the reasons not to. And most times, those reasons are not founded. They're frivolous.
So what's the thing that you haven't done that you think that you should be doing?
I try to do all those things, like starting seniorcenterct.org and traveling. You know, we didn't this year because we did the bathroom remodel, but the last few years we have taken 3-week vacations, and we're starting to make the plans for that in 2019. So we do try to do those things and not put them off. If we find we're putting off something, when are we going to do it? You know, so maybe we're not going to do it in the spring, but let's get it done before the fall comes.
I'm going to put you on the spot now. Of course, you are the creator of seniorcenterct.org. It's been going now for a while. Did you ever think it was going to be this successful? And, you know, what was your plan for it?
We all have those dreams, you know, when we dream, and I dream big, you know, and so I think I always wanted to be a business owner, but I never quite figured out what business I wanted to. And when you're raising children and stuff, you know, you have to have the income. You have to have the health insurance and all of that. So when I started with seniorcenterct.org, I did dream big, and I do see that going across the nation. I see it being like a Places Plus kind of website where you can go and find the information, not just for senior centers, but for all the other things that are out there that we want to do and we put off, or we can't find out how to do it. I want to go to a dude ranch in Texas. How am I going to find a dude ranch in Texas that's going to fit me? You know, and I've got to figure it out somehow. So, you know, I'm talking to travel agencies and other places. Of course, my husband isn't going to do that trip, but I'm going to go do it.
That sounds amazing. The other thing, of course, is, you know, since you started seniorcenterct.org, not only has it been successful as a website and a resource, you helped to create the podcast, which, of course, we are doing now, which is also I believe has become, very accessible and also, in its own right, successful, to the degree that, of course, we can now be heard on the Hall Communication Radio Group in the area as well. And you got interviewed by Stu Breyer recently about that. Again, did you ever envisage something like this when you were thinking about, what SeniorCenterCT.org was going to mean to you?
No, I never thought about the podcast, and our chance meeting, at that event that we both were at was amazing, and here we sit today. Somebody had just asked me how the podcast came about, and I told them it was just a chance meeting. We just happened to attend the same event, sit at the same table, and we're still talking.
We certainly are.
Yes.
We certainly are. But Judy, as always, it's great to have you, and it's been great to be part of SeniorCenterCT.org with you this year. We look forward to it as well for next year as we hopefully continue to grow this. So I'm going to say to you, have a great Christmas to you and your family.
And a great Christmas to you. I hope that the holidays bring you much joy.
Thank you ever so much. And we will speak to you again, of course, in the new year.
Yes, 2019, here we come.
Excellent. Judy, you take care of yourself. That's all from this edition of Generations. Don't forget to visit SeniorCenterCT.org to find out what's going on in your neck of the woods. And if you want to send us a topic to talk about or want to be our guest on the podcast, drop us a line by visiting the SeniorCenterCT.org website. Go to the bottom of the homepage and click the How to Advertise with Us link to get in touch. From myself, Brian Scott Smith, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next year.